Thank you, Rajesh, and good afternoon, friends. The answer is love. What is the question? Yes, you heard that right. The answer is love. What is the question? The question is, besides meat, condiments, spices, vegetables, and a proven recipe, what else is required to produce an outstanding meal? Without a healthy dose of love and passion from the chef, no meal can be excellent. A meal made without love may meet all the requirements of the recipe, but it will fall flat more often than not. Why, you might ask? If someone follows the recipe to the dot and goes exactly as instructed, why should the meal not be perfect? Well, I don't need to convince all the foodies we have in our midst today that making a memorable meal is much more than a check-the-box exercise. It is the genuine desire and persistence of the chef to offer nothing but the best every day that creates excellence. Just think for a moment of your favorite chef at a restaurant or in your family for that matter. What makes them so special? And you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So, my dear friends, when Tina Turner says in her famous song, "What's love got to do with it?" I completely disagree. Love has everything to do with it. Now, when it comes to ESG excellence, the same principle applies. Above all, it is all about love. Love here is the genuine desire and persistence to create a collective better future. This also happens to be the definition of steward leadership, the leadership model that we need in the 21st century. The genuine desire and persistence to create a collective better future. Not just a better future for oneself or one's shareholder, but a collective better future where the needs of a wide variety of stakeholders, including society at large, future generations, and the environment are addressed. A key point to note here is that steward leadership is not against profit. In fact, steward leadership is all about maximizing profit and growth. But it is about doing so by addressing the very existential challenges planet Earth and humanity are currently facing: climate change, income inequality, and hunger, to name a few. So if you're really smart, you want to find a business model that makes you money and gives you growth by addressing these very challenges. According to the World Economic Forum, this represents a $10.1 trillion a year in business opportunities. 10.1 trillion. So this is not an argument about soft skills or EQ. This is about pure business and financial sense. Steward leaders fully understand that in today's interconnected world, no individual or organization can thrive in isolation by ignoring the challenges. So they fall in love with the idea of driving growth through ESG. For them, ESG is the main course, not an optional side dish. So boards that focus only and exclusively on reporting, compliance and control, and executive compensation to get ESG right may be checking all the important boxes, but they may not be able to produce ESG excellence because a key ingredient, the key ingredient of love and commitment, in this case toward leadership, may be missing. So how can boards ensure steward leadership is alive and kicking in the organization? How can the board make sure management is building and maintaining a culture of genuine steward leadership throughout the organization where each and every employee wants to thrive on ESG, not just comply with it? The short answer is by replacing rules-based governance with values-based governance. Now let me elaborate on that a bit. As I just mentioned, the challenge of the 21st century leadership and governance is to drive profitable growth by directly addressing the existential challenges of today. But what got us here will not get us there. Leadership and governance has thus far always been about rules, compliance, and control. The widespread change we need to save the planet needs love, as expressed and practiced by living the right values day in and day out. Very briefly, if you want to thrive with steward leadership, you need to first create a culture based on 4 core stewardship values: which according to our research are interdependence, long-term view, ownership mentality, and creative resilience. Like most organizations, if you already have a set of corporate values, the first step is to integrate and spell out these 4 ideas within them. If that means rewriting your current values, so be it. Next, you need to develop an organizational purpose based on those values to create the collective better future I talked about. Such a purpose, one that goes beyond just 1 or 2 stakeholders, is what we call a stewardship purpose. There's a lot of buzz about purpose these days, but just any purpose will not do. It has to be a stewardship purpose, one that creates a collective better future, because every organization already has a purpose. Even the mafia has a purpose. The question is what kind of purpose. So it must be a stewardship purpose. So articulating stewardship values and a stewardship purpose are the first 2 foundational steps of steward leadership. And the third, an ongoing step, is to guide and govern everything the organization does day in and day out using those values and purpose relentlessly. This is the recipe of the likes of Paul Polman that Heller was just talking about, of the Tata Group in India, of Starbucks, and a whole host of steward leadership companies around the world, including my co-panelists who will shortly follow. As I'm sure you'll hear from them, success depends on how sincerely and persistently the purpose is pursued while living the values at all times. So back to the board. What does the board need to do differently? Well, instead of focusing solely on compliance and reporting, the board should do whatever it can to also make sure that stewardship values are alive and kicking and are not just posters on the wall, and that the stewardship purpose is pursued genuinely. There are 2 ways of doing that. First, get involved with defining the stewardship purpose of the organization as a board. And once it is set, get even more involved in approving an appropriate strategy to achieve the purpose. By all means, demand best-in-class growth and profitability, but ensure that it is inclusive and not lopsided towards one stakeholder. After the strategy is set, be patient and be supportive. Returns will be superior with steward leadership, but may take some time to materialize. Paul Polman delivered 290% returns to shareholders over his tenure as CEO, and he could not have done it without the board's active support and patience. Second, create systems and structures that enable the board to ensure the 4 values are practiced all across the organization. This means looking into recruiting systems, performance management processes, rewards and promotions, and making sure the right behaviors are measured and rewarded. Instead of looking at annual employee engagement survey data, annual employee engagement surveys that have a lot of flaws in the ways they are currently used, more on that topic another day, boards can ask to measure a company's stewardship quotient, in which employees provide feedback on whether the stewardship values and purpose are actually and genuinely practiced, or are they just slogans? My dear friends, the recent lapses at Boeing and Volkswagen were not because of lax controls or inadequate reporting. They were the result of a breakdown of values and purpose. For all its risk management and compliance focus, the boards were left in the dark because there was nothing in place to measure culture risk, which is the risk of a values and purpose breakdown. In today's world, where rules get outdated before the ink dries on them, this is the spice that is missing in the boardroom, the spice of love and commitment, and how to measure it. Friends, in the limited time I have for this keynote, I will leave it at that. If you would like to chat more about how to implement these ideas in a very practical way, my colleagues and I at Stewardship Asia will be more than happy to engage with you offline. Thank you very much.